what are those structures that are currently available for Web3 startups to build their startups on? Can you talk a bit about that?
So, as DAOs, you can't really get legally registered or obtain the status of a legal entity anywhere in the world except for Marshall Islands. And Wisconsin recently came up with a law, and I think maybe the Caribbean islands are probably bringing about certain legislations they are going to enact some laws that is going to give some sort of a recognition to DAOs. But then see, if you want to register a DAO, in essence, you are negating the whole purpose of a DAO. How are you going to call it a legal entity if your whole idea behind creating it was to have a decentralized, non-regulated platform, right? So when it comes to DAOs, even the idea of regularizing it, even if I bring a legislation into picture that that you can get your DAO registered, but your whole principle of a DAO is having an unregistered, unregulated, decentralized entity, right? So it contradicts the whole purpose of it. I mean, I can't emphasize how much the two concepts are contradictory. Secondly, when you ask about the kind of structure that somebody in India does, see, it doesn't matter what is a DAO is completely different from a Polygon is not a DAO. If you want to conduct business, I would say as of right now, maybe there are DAOs that are going to prove me wrong. I hope there are, or maybe I don't hope there are. Once again, legal ambiguity. But if you want to develop a business, you are going to have to register as a company. You're going to want to have employees. You're going to want to have, there's even, forget Web3, any company or any business that you're starting up. There are certain logistic things that go about the same way, whether you're in Web3, Web2, Web1, non-Web, tech, non-tech. Be it employees, payrolls, office furniture, logistics, back-end offices, all of these things need to be figured out. So for them, you will obviously make yourself into a private limited company, and you'll form directors. So that is a very that is not something that most people face trouble with, because what you're dealing with is entirely different. I'm just opening a business entity. It's my company. I can do whatever with it I want, as long as I'm not doing anything unlawful. And if I'm providing certain tech services, I'm developing a particular technology, or I'm developing a software, that's all right. It's my company. I can do what I want. So nothing wrong with that. That is not where the problem arises. The problem arises later on when when you see, as long as it's like having a toothache. If you've gotten a cavity inside your tooth, as long as your tooth is not aching, it's fine, right? But the moment it's prodded, that is when you realize, or that is when the dentist will see, okay, it's rotten all the way inside. So it's later on when somebody, when you reach a particular stage and a regulator or a compliance officer comes to you and says, okay, open your books now. That is when you get in trouble. And it is not something that only Web3 companies do. That is something that any company, any startup, or, any business can run into, compliance and regulatory issues. The problem is that for regular businesses, there is a checklist of compliances they can meet or not meet. They can hire lawyers, they can hire professionals who, because this has been existing. Our Companies Act, the original one, was existing from 18 or 1900s. Your regulatory checklist, the conventional way of doing things, it's well established. So if I have a conventional business, I know that if I am transacting with you tomorrow, I need to have an agreement, I need you to sign this, I need you to sign that, I'm giving you money, I need to have proof of that transaction. That's fine. From a regulatory standpoint, I need to file my books of accounts by this date, I need to submit my ITR, I need to show my profits, whatever. That is conventionally done. When it comes to a Web3 company or a Web3 business, the problem is there is no such checklist. If you want to release an IPO tomorrow, SEBI has an entire book full of guidelines that you have to get your valuation done by these valuators, you have to submit these papers, you cannot release your shares at this price, at this date, and this way. You have to get your exchanges registered. But if you want to release your tokens, you come up with a token currency. You want to release your tokens, you can price them whatever you want, because there's no regulation there. Nobody's governing it. You can sell them for whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with it, no registration, nothing with it. So that is where the problem arises, both for the business person as well as the regulator. Because from a business standpoint, you're like, I don't know what needs to be done, so how do you expect me to do it? But from a regulatory and from the lawmaker's point of view, how can I allow this activity to continue when, suppose, I come up with a token, okay, this one token is for 1 lakh rupees. You can do and I am accepting cash. Come to my house, deposit 1 lakh rupees, and I will give you that one token. That kind of transaction has huge illegal, implications of whole money laundering and illegal transactions, all of those things that come into picture. That is the problem. Not the structuring, not the, the way the business is conducted, but the nature of the deep nature of the business. That is where the problem arises.